All right, let's break it down, folks. Today, we're diving deep into Canada's Liberal government and their catastrophic handling of immigration.
They're a bunch of fucking amateurs.
Now, before you start yelling, but Canada's immigration policy is about compassion. I get it. It's not that I'm against immigration. I'm against complete mismanagement of it. We're talking about an out-of-control influx of newcomers without the proper infrastructure, housing, or jobs to support them. Meanwhile, the government sits there acting like everything's fine, and the rest of us are left holding the bag. Let's walk through the numbers and the absurdity of it all. Fact-driven, sarcastic, and with just enough passion to make you wonder if I'm running for office. Spoiler alert, I'm not. First, the numbers. In 2023, Canada welcomed over 500,000 permanent residents, and that doesn't include the hundreds of thousands more on temporary work permits, student visas, and asylum claims. So in total, we're looking at over 1 million people entering the country every year. To put that into perspective, that's like adding the population of Montreal every 12 months.
Damn!
Does that sound sustainable to you? But wait, it gets better. The government isn't just doing this for fun. They've set targets to bring in over 1.5 million immigrants over the next 3 years. You think this would come with a solid strategy for housing, healthcare, education, and employment, right? Nope. It's like buying a house without checking if there's any plumbing. Canada's immigration policy right now is like a wedding planner throwing a massive reception but forgetting to book the venue. Oh, don't worry. We'll figure it out when everyone shows up. Now, let's talk about housing, or as I like to call it, the completely unsolvable problem that's quietly destroying Canadian families. This is where the real impact of this immigration free-for-all hits home. Last year, Canada added over 500,000 people, but we're building fewer than 250,000 homes a year. That's a massive deficit in supply. And as we know, the less supply there is, the more demand there is, which drives up prices. So what happens? You get skyrocketing real estate prices and insane rents. Millennials and Gen Zers can't even dream of owning a home anymore. You know what that's called? The Great Canadian Dream Crusher. And before the government says, but we got plans to increase housing construction, let's talk about how many of those housing projects are starting up. Almost zero in the current environment.
It's a damn shame. A damn shame.
Meanwhile, every day Canadians are fighting to get into the rental market, where they're paying half their salaries for a basement apartment. Housing has simply been a failure, plain and simple. Let's move on to employment, or should I say, the lack of it. With all these new immigrants coming in, you'd think there'd be a huge boom in jobs, right? That's the theory. Well, what's actually happening? Wages are stagnating and unemployment rates are still high for many groups, especially young men. Why? Because we're importing a massive pool of labor while failing to train and equip Canadians to compete in the job market. Immigrants may bring skills, but too many are working in low-wage, low-skilled jobs competing with Canadians for the same positions. This depresses wages, especially in sectors like construction, hospitality, and retail. Canada's employment strategy has been a colossal disaster. Unemployment's going up and the economy is going downhill fast. Now let's talk about the GDP per capita, the measure of how much economic value each individual contributes. In simple terms, it's how much better we're doing financially as a country. Canada has one of the highest immigration rates in the world. But guess what? We rank dead last in GDP per capita growth among G7 nations. Don't let our politicians gaslight you to think otherwise. It's simply bullshit.
Bullshit!
In fact, we're barely even growing. Last year, our GDP per capita barely moved while countries like US, Germany, and the UK were making real strides. How can that happen? Easy. We're inflating our population, but we're not expanding productivity at the same rate. Immigrants are arriving, but we're not equipping them, or the rest of us, with the tools to succeed. Instead of improving productivity through innovation, education, and high quality jobs, we're just stretching our resources thinner like a kid trying to feed 100 people with a pizza that only has 8 slices. It's like having a dinner party and letting 50 extra people in, but still serving the same amount of food. Then the host says, "Hey, we're all going to eat more. Just trust me." Spoiler alert, nobody's getting fed. Let's bring this all together. The government is selling us a narrative that immigration will fuel economic growth. They say it will solve our labor shortages and drive prosperity. Yet, here we are, dealing with record housing prices, stagnant wages, and a shrinking GDP per capita. What happened to all those grand promises? They've been gaslit away. You can't continue to grow your population faster than your resources without major consequences. And now we're living them every day. Higher rents, fewer job opportunities, and a future that looks bleaker than a Calgary winter. Canada's immigration policy right now is like trying to run a marathon with your shoelaces tied together. You will land face first into the pavement and you're going to get hurt. So what do we do about it? Simple. Stop treating immigration like a numbers game and start treating it like the complex, nuanced issue it is. We need to balance population growth with infrastructure, housing, and jobs. Otherwise, we're just creating a system that rewards cheap political wins while mortgaging the future of hardworking Canadians. We need leadership that recognizes that immigration without a plan is chaos. We need to invest in housing, we need to invest in education, and we need to invest in productivity improvements, not just cheap labor and political photo ops. Until then, we're all just pretending the housing market is fine while watching our financial futures erode like an old condo on the wrong side of the tracks. Thanks for watching, folks. Don't let bad policy mess with your finances. Subscribe to Owl Mortgage for the facts and stay tuned for more real talk about the economy, housing, and making smart decisions for your future. Because smart decisions start with the facts.